like the relief. I can't describe the relief. Like, I can't describe the peace. I feel like every Black person deserves to feel that. The first image that I ever seen of Africa, I was a young child, maybe like kindergarten, first grade. And I remember seeing on the television repeated images of Africa, different parts of Africa, and the poverty that they, you know, the Africans lived in. And they would always show like the young children with their bellies bulging from hunger. And they just showed like the most extreme cases of poverty, you know, from being, you know, amongst people that lived in Africa. Those images stayed in my memory for over 30 years. It didn't matter what I seen of recent content of Africa, that image stayed in my head, and it did not leave my memory. Actually, it's still in my memory, of course, but you know, I couldn't get that image of Africa out of my head until I actually came here myself and laid eyes on it. I had family, you know, that moved here to Gambia at least a year before I did. And even still, like I say, you know, I just could not get past those images, and I still seen that as being the reality. You know, I'm not saying that there are no places in Africa, of course, that are like that, like those images that I've seen as a small child. But I will say that I've been here in Gambia almost a year now. It's been 10 months that my family has been here in Gambia. And yes, of course, I have seen some poor. You know, there are a lot of poor people, you know, here in Gambia. But I have not seen anyone who doesn't have food. I haven't seen any small children, you know, with their bellies bulging, any small children that are starving to the point that you can see, you know, like their bones, like their skeleton through their skin. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm saying that I've been here and living in Gambia for almost a year now, 10 months, and I haven't seen it. And a lot of these, you know, the children, you know, look happy and healthy, and maybe even happier and healthier than a lot of the children, you know, in America. Gambia is worth visiting even if it only erases like those images out of your mind that you have about Africa, that you have had about Africa, like me, for over 30 years. My grandparents moved to Gambia, you know, before I did with my family, and I used to ask my grandfather about the food situation and, you know, like about the hunger rates and all that stuff when I was still living in America. He said to me, he said, how can people be starving and there are mango trees and orange trees and all of this fruits and vegetables like just growing all over the place in Africa? I couldn't imagine that. You know, he was saying that, but I just still couldn't imagine it. But the people that are even considered to be the poorest people, you know, they have fruit trees in their yard. It's a lot. It's just like, it's so much to cover. You know, I don't want to make like this video really too lengthy, but it's hard to explain. If you have plans of moving to Africa, but you don't know whether you want to move to Gambia or another African country, I would say definitely, like, yes, Gambia is definitely worth visiting, because even though like all countries are different, when it comes to Africa, you know, there are things that are going to be similar amongst the African countries. So with Gambia being a place that is easy to visit, and it's one of the cheapest places, that the cost of living is low, it's one of the cheapest African places. You know, so I would definitely say that it's worth visiting, because at least you can experience the things that will be similar amongst like the African traditions, cultures, or just, yeah, like I'll say cultures. For example, like the culture shock that everyone talks about, it's real. I had family that lived here in Gambia, you know, at least a year before I moved here. And even still, you know, people can tell you or try to warn you or give you like a heads up, but there's nothing like experiencing it for yourself. Like, for example, one of the things that I experienced was like, you know, the fact that the personal space that we're used to as Americans, like living in America, you don't just walk up to someone that you don't know and touch them. You know, generally you don't just walk up to someone and touch their baby, or, you know, touch their baby's face or kiss their baby. Okay, well, when you come to Africa, or at least Gambia, I'll speak about Gambia because that's where I am, and that's a country that I'm familiar, you know, that I have experience with. They will do that, and it's normal, you know. And being an American, you may feel upset, or someone can walk up to you and just touch your baby's face, or try to kiss your baby, or try to even like take your baby out of your hand, and it's completely normal. So that sounds crazy, you know, living in America and only being in America, to hear someone say that that is normal in some places. You can't imagine it, because for us it's unacceptable. It's just like, you know, it's not normal for us. It's not normal for our society. So, you know, someone trying to explain that to you, it's nothing like experiencing it, you know. And like I say, all African countries are going to be different, like the cultures are different, but then there are things that are going to be just similar, you know, amongst them. And I do have friends that have traveled to other African countries, and whenever I hear about the stories, I'm like, man, that sounds like Gambia. I have a childhood friend that came here to visit me from America, and she, you know, her father is from Egypt, you know, and she would just say like, wow, like Gambia really reminds me of Egypt, you know, like it just really makes me feel like I'm in Egypt, you know, a lot of the things. So I would definitely say you can get a taste of Africa, how it feels to be in any other African place, you know, being that Gambia is an easy place to come to, and it's not costly and stuff to come here. Yeah, it's definitely worth visiting. If you're considering moving to Africa, you know, there are just things that you will have to adapt to that we're not used to as Americans. Like, for example, I'm just gonna say it's a man's world over here. Like, I'm just gonna say that that's what it's a man's world over here. So you can go as a woman, go to the grocery store or whatever, you know, I won't say like one of those Western stores, but just an African shop or like a local market or something like that. And you go and you're standing in line, and, you know, you're standing in line, and you assume that, you know, when the person in front of you moves, you're going to be next you're going to be next at the counter. If there's a man that walks up behind you, he's going to get in front of you. The man's going to get in front of you, you know. And I still struggle with that. And I've been here in Gambia almost a year, and I still struggle with that because where I come from, that's not okay. You know, so I've even had to kind of step out of character a little bit and say, do you see me standing here? After I got used to being here for a while, you know, I would have to say, so are you getting in front of me because I'm a woman? Or does it not matter that I was standing here? You know, I've been standing here for a long time, but because I'm a woman, you're going to come and get in front of me? That's normal. You know, and you know, so I had to do that a few times. And sometimes they either don't understand you, they don't speak English, or they speak English and they will pretend that they don't speak English, pretend that they don't understand you, or they'll understand you and they just don't care because there's nothing you can do about it but get upset. But, you know, so that happened to me a few times. That happened to me a lot, you know, and there's nothing that anyone could have told me to really prepare me for that moment. You know, there's nothing like experiencing it for yourself. Is that worth me going back to America? God, no. Like, there's nothing so far that I have experienced here in Gambia that has made me even consider going back to America, with the exception of, I don't know if you guys have been watching, you know, like my husband's traveling, he has business, but he's traveling. So during those times that it gets like really overwhelming with the children, you know, I may be thinking, oh my God, like, can I really do this, or should I go back? Which is crazy thought. But aside from, you know, missing my husband while he's traveling, there has been nothing that has made me consider going back to America. Like, everything that I have experienced here being African American, living in Africa, everything that I have experienced here has been worth me being able to live in Africa and raise my children in Africa. You know, so I just say you have to see it, you have to experience it. You know, there's nothing that someone can really tell you to really prepare you for that moment, that the shock, like the cultural things will shock you. And it depends on the reason why you want to be in Africa, or, you know, why, if you're considering moving to Africa, it really depends on what your reasoning is, whether you will be able to be tolerant of the culture and the social norms. So I said, whenever I moved here to Gambia, I said that, you know, I started my YouTube channel after I came here to Gambia, and I said that I was going to share everything on my channel, the good, the bad, the ugly, just everything. I said I was going to share. There are things that YouTubers are not going to share in their videos, and I really could not understand that until I came here. Until I came here and lived here. It's just, you go through so much. It's impossible to share everything, even if you try, you know, to share things. There are just certain things that, you know, no one wants to show the world, no one wants to be vulnerable to the world completely. Like, open yourself up and say, oh, I struggle with this, I struggle with that, you know, this is how I felt, and just like pour your heart out to everyone. Maybe some people can do that, but there's going to be things that you're going to keep to yourself. It's just a form of self-care. You know, keeping things personal, struggling mentally with something and trying to get yourself, like, trying to work it out in your own head, you know, trying to work it out, trying to adapt to it. And another thing is, when you move to a country and it becomes your home, it's a certain, like, level of respect that you have to have for the place. You have to have for the locals, you know. So it's hard to share certain things and just like keep it 100 and tell it exactly how it is, when you're going to be probably offensive to the people that are around you, your neighbors. It's very difficult to just say certain things unless you don't care, you know. But for me, like, I really do try to be as tactful as possible in my videos. And I know sometimes there are going to be things that, you know, that are said that are just offensive. My goal is never to offend anyone, but I know that there are things that are going to be said that can be taken in an offensive way, no matter how they're being said. But yes, like, the cultural shock is real. I remember, like, when I first came to Gambia and I had a Western Union money transfer sent here. So I took a cab because I wasn't driving at that time. I took a cab to the Western Union to pick up the money transfer. And I remember, you know, when the taxi driver was bringing me back home, he said, oh, this is the compound. This is where the woman from Western Union, this is where she lives. And she doesn't live far from you. She lives right here. And I said, oh my God. I was like, why is that okay? Like, how is that okay? Like, he's telling me where this woman, like, that's so private. Why would he tell me where this woman lives? And then I kind of like went into paranoia, because I was just like, if he's telling like so easily where she lives, he's gonna tell people where I live. And I'm just like, everyone is just like open. It's open knowledge where everyone lives. Like, it's just an open thing, like, where everyone lives. You know, people will come to your house, knock on your door. It will scare you. If you can take a cab somewhere, right? And you don't remember how to get to or how to get from the place that you just went. But if you go back to that same place and you happen to come across the same cab driver and you want them to take you home again, they remember exactly where you live. They will remember exactly where you live, and it will creep you out. It will creep you out, because you're just like, how in the heck does this person remember? Like, how can he take me one time and then drive me right to my doorstep? You know, and if you're coming from a place that's like a high crime place, like America, that's scary. You feel like that's unsafe. You know, it can creep you out. It can make you paranoid. If you're living in America, you know how you live in paranoia anyway. Like, anxiety, everyone's living in anxiety in America because the crime is so high and all, like, there's just so many reasons. You know, so if you come to a place and things are normal, what you have been conditioned to believe are dangerous Can you live like that? You need to experience that, like, for yourself. You have to experience that. There's no one that can really prepare you, you know, for things like that. And honestly, some of the things that I experienced here in Gambia after I moved here, had I been told about those things, I probably would not have moved here. And the reality of it was experiencing it, certain things were not as bad as how I would have perceived them if they were told to me. So that's why I say it's worth visiting. You have to see it for yourself. You have to feel it for yourself. You have to, everyone is different. So what I consider to be tolerable has been and is intolerable. A lot of things, like for a lot of my family members, you know, what I'm able to easily adapt to can be something that someone struggles with for years. So that's why it's important for you to experience things for yourself. So my family did move here to Gambia without visiting. Like, we just moved. All of us, me, my husband, our children. I have 8 children. Being that I was 100% sure that it was time for my family to move from the US, it wasn't worth that visit, because no matter what was here, I was gonna move here. I knew that I wanted to raise my children, inshallah, I wanted to raise my children in Africa. Okay, so I knew the struggles and everything that I was encountering in America. I knew that I was done. I was done with that lifestyle. I was done with the struggles and the problems that I was going through with raising my children. You know, I was just done. I was done. Like, I already had my mind made up. So I know from being here in Gambia, I had different things. I had like phobias of spiders and lizards, and that I'm saying had, because with time, I actually overcame those things. You know, it wasn't easy. I'm not going to pretend that it was easy, but I had different phobias, you know, because of the environment that we live in America. You just don't see certain things. You don't see certain insects and bugs and, you know, all that stuff. So I'm saying, like, if you're able to afford to visit, especially if you're considering moving to Africa, even if you're considering a place that is not Gambia, if you're considering another country in Africa and you have the opportunity to visit Gambia and you can afford it, yes, I would say definitely visit, so that you can kind of get your feet wet, you know, about like how it feels to live in Gambia. Alhamdulillah, like for myself personally, it was a difficult adjustment because it was so different, but I will say that I feel like I adjusted and adapted pretty well myself and the children. My husband had a different experience, but I'm not going to talk about his experience. I'll talk about my own, and yes, I feel like I did adapt, you know, pretty well to Africa. I really love Gambia. I definitely highly recommend visiting if you're able to. I'm not gonna say I recommend moving without visiting, because that is not for everyone. I'm like a person that rolls with the punches, and you know, it's not for everyone to move without visiting. So if you can visit, absolutely visit. If you have an interest of living in Africa or living in Gambia, definitely visit. But I will say this: you're not gonna be able to visit for a weekend or a week or 2 weeks and see the things that you need to see that will help you decide whether you want to live here or not. It's gonna take a few months. I will say that. So don't think that, oh, I'm gonna go to Gambia for the weekend and I'm gonna see Gambia and decide whether I can live there, and then you go and you stay in the nicest hotel in Gambia. That's kind of like a fantasy life. You know, if you wanna see if you can live in Gambia, instead of going to the fanciest hotel in Gambia for a weekend or a week or 2, you know, to test Gambia out, maybe like rent or book an Airbnb and experience the locals. Because if you're planning to live in Gambia, you have to experience how it feels to deal with Gambians. Don't come to Gambia to visit and keep yourself separate from everyone and then move here and think that that experience is going to be the same. Everything that I have experienced has been, it's just been worth it. Like, there's no place on earth that is going to be perfect. And it depends on what your priorities are. It depends on what's important to you. I'm raising children. I have an 11-month-old. My oldest child is 19. I have 8 children, you know, so that's my priority. My priority is raising children. I feel like it's easier. I know it's easier for me to raise children here since I've been here in Gambia. I moved for that reason. And, you know, I was able to gain, you know, that the reason why I moved, I was able to gain that, you know, alhamdulillah. So, for me, it's worth it. So if you're considering moving to Africa, definitely it's worth visiting Gambia, you know, so that you can experience the cons and see if it's something that you're able to live with. But aside from the cons of living in Africa, if you're considering, you know, if you're not considering moving to Africa, but you're just trying to decide if it's worth visiting just to see how it feels to be in Africa, it's still worth it because of the pros. Just experiencing being black, being in Africa, that feeling is not something that someone can describe to you. I mean, people have tried to describe it to me, like before I came here. People have tried to describe the peace and the serenity and the decrease in anxiety and like all that stuff. Like, people tried to describe that to me before I came here, and there is nothing like experiencing it. I'm telling you, it's indescribable. I feel like every black person deserves to feel that. And if you're a mother raising children, you're constantly worried. And if you're a mother and you have boys and you're black and you're raising sons, you're constantly particularly worried and stressed, like I was, you know, with having my son. He's 14 now, you know, he turned 14 here in Gambia. But the fears that I had, you know, being there in America, and the certain levels of anxiety that I had, I wasn't going to escape that being there. I don't care what level of self-care, what level of, you know, therapy and coaching that you can get. When you live somewhere and you know that something is a reality of where you live, the fear is inescapable. And to me, it was inescapable until I came here. Literally, when we stepped foot on African soil, certain things, the problems disappeared like magic. Like, they just disappeared. They were not an issue, no longer an issue anymore. I no longer had the concerns, like the relief. I can't describe the relief. Like, I can't describe the peace. I was just thinking, it was like 2 days ago, I went to the beach. We live so close to the beach. You know, mashallah, we live like, if there was no traffic, I could get to the beach in 5 minutes, you know. And so like 2 days ago, I went to the beach and I was just sitting on the water. Every time I go to the beach and I feel that peace, it just, like, my mind goes to America. Honestly, I think about America, and I think about like how stressed out I could still be and what my life probably would be like right now had I not faced that fear and just did what I really believe, like what I prayed about doing, which was moving to Africa, you know, moving to Gambia. Like, I prayed so hard about moving to Gambia, you know, before I left the US. And so when I go and like I reflect, I just think about everything that I have been relieved from. I think about how, like, my prayer was answered. I think about how content, like the contentment that I have, you know, in my life right now. I really kind of felt like this was like a really laid back, go with the flow video. And I talked a lot about like my opinions and my feelings and stuff about like being here in Gambia. But I hope that at least it helped you guys to decide whether it would be worth a visit or not for you. I do want to thank everyone, like, for the comments. I read every comment, even when I don't have time, because like I have a busy mom life with 8 children, you know, alhamdulillah. But even when I don't have time to sit down and respond to every comment, I always have the intentions to go back and do it, but I always read them. So I want to thank you guys so much for the comments. I mean, if you're hesitating about whether you should leave a comment or not, just know that I appreciate, like, the comments. The comments help me know that I'm making valuable content. The feedback, like, motivates me to keep going and keep making more videos. You know, I'm new at this, new YouTuber. Definitely been less than a year I've been doing this, so I still need, like, the motivation and everything to keep moving forward. So those that leave comments, thank you so much. Like, I really appreciate you. I share those comments with my family and my children and everything. So thank you guys so much, and I'll see you in the next video. I want to tell you guys, I wanted to make sure I mentioned in this video that I did create a Facebook page for summers in Africa, and it's in the link will be in the description, you know, for you guys to go and follow the page. Because so if you've been following me for a while, like, you know that I'm a health coach and I love health and fitness. You know, some people went and, like, followed my Instagram or, like, my social media and found that it was mainly, like, the food that I eat and my health and wellness journey, you know, because that's just what I love. That's what I love to share. And, you know, so anyway, I created a Facebook page so that I could, a new Facebook page so that I could share particularly more things about Gambia and life for Gambia with my family. So, you know, if you guys want to follow that page, that would be really good. I also would like to, like, create a community there where we can engage and I can ask questions about, like, the content that you want to see here on YouTube. I would like to get feedback about, like, the different types of videos that I can make so that I'm making videos that you guys want to see. Like, I want to create the content that you guys want to see. So I would really appreciate it if you would go and check out the page on Facebook and, you know, like, follow that page so that we can be connected and I can create content that you want to see here on YouTube.